Hello, welcome again to the Resilient Africa Week. This is our last session for today. Thank you all, our followers, for staying with us all today. Now we, in a more relaxed mode, we're going to talk about fashion and building an international fashion brand. And this is going to be an interesting one. I want you to leave your comments on your discussions and the issues you have as a fashion enthusiast and follower. And I'll take you on now to our hosts and also our guest speaker to take on the views. Thank you.
Thank you, Femi. Okay, my name is Yamisi Fajimolu Taiwo, otherwise known as just Misi Molu. And today I have the absolute honor of introducing a very, how shall I put it, an amazing woman, because this woman in particular, just in speaking to her, I remember when the first time we spoke and I was like taking notes, I was like, I can't do this. There's just a lot, basically. So her name is Nova Lorraine, and let me just tell you a little bit of the things that she's accomplished, so at least you have a background of who it is that's going to be speaking today. Nova Lorraine has a master's in clinical psychology and a degree in fashion design, and she's launched a magazine called Raine magazine, which is an international multimedia platform that features the big names in fashion, culture, and technology. So her career has spanned over the last 13 years. She's interviewed some of the biggest names in the world: Mark Cuban, Nikki Hilton, Viscountess Emma Thin, Fabienne Cousteau, Kendall Jenner, and Damon John. And that's just to name a few. Okay, now within her career, she's received many accolades for her design sensibility, Haute Couture Designer of the Year, and multiple Rising Star nominations by the Fashion Group International. And apart from that, her designs have graced, wait for this, the big screen, television, the pages of Italian Vogue and Essence magazine. I'm saying this, I'm getting goosebumps because that is, for me, one of the most amazing things. If you know anything about the fashion industry, to achieve these feats is a very huge accomplishment. And one of the most amazing things that I find is that she is actually a mother of 4 boys. 4, not 1, not 2, but 4. Okay, so that in itself is wow. Okay, and then she enjoys sharing a deep love for storytelling, culture, fitness, wellness, and she shares this interest in her award. You see, another one, award-nominated podcast, and it's called Unleash Your Supernova. I believe the name Nova in itself was just a blessing that was just put on top on her, just to say, you know what, go out, achieve, and just excel, be a trailblazer, and just, set the world on fire. Not literally, but with the amazing feats that she has accomplished. So now she's enjoying inspiring MBA business and entrepreneurial students through guest lectureships at Penn State, Hampton University, LaSalle Institute, and New York's Fashion Institute of Technology. And here we have it. Here she is. This is Nova Lorraine.
Well, thank you. That was so.
Thank you so much for being here.
No, I'm excited to be here.
Okay. I first of all, I'm just, one of the things that I've been wondering is that how is it, have you been able to achieve everything that you've achieved? What kind of drive and determination did you need to have in order to achieve all these things?
Well, first I will have to say, with the support of my amazing husband and my family. I did not do this alone, and I couldn't have done it without them. When I launched my fashion company, I had 2 babies. And as I continue to grow in fashion, the family grew, and I was pregnant with my 4th when I had the idea of launching Raine magazine. So it definitely takes a village. And so I would say with the help of them. But in terms of my mindset, fashion has always been a means for me of helping people. And as you mentioned, I started off in the academic world pursuing my PhD. And I had an aha moment that it was going to be through my love of fashion, of how it's going to really impact a large amount of people. And so it's always been, doing something that's bigger than me. If it was just me, I'll be in a little cottage on the beach and I'll be good with my little book or fashion magazine.
With your kids running around, you'd be like, yeah, we're good to go. I'm good to go.
But no.
So now, today, for example, and obviously the seminar we're in, it's called Resilient Africa. And we're discussing these issues with regards to how to actually survive, how to push through, how to wade through the confusion that's going on with a lot of people right now with regards to the era and the time that we're in. We never really want to talk about Auntie Rona, but you know what? COVID-19 is here, and she's causing havoc all over the world. So now you're going to be speaking to us on how to basically start a fashion brand, how to build the fashion brand, how to make it a success, namely in Africa. So I believe that in itself is something that a lot of people will be very interested in, because the fashion industry, just in Nigeria alone, is huge. And the fashion business in itself is $1 trillion, not $1 trillion company, but it's $1 trillion industry, time and time over. So maybe we should just get started and let you just get right into it, because I know that I'm very curious about what you have to say about everything.
Yeah, no, awesome. Thank you so much again for the amazing introduction. And as you mentioned, I'll be talking about how to launch an international fashion business and the 5 key components, especially out of Africa. But I do want to just let our viewers know, our attendees know, that I'll be briefly going through each slide, and the presentation will be available through our LinkedIn group. And so look for it there, join us. You can stay connected with us after the conference, and you can dig deeper with the slides at your free time on your schedule when you need to. So follow along with me, and then join us with any questions that you may have afterwards. So here we go. Let's get started. So today we're going to go through, and you already went through my background, we're going to talk about a brief overview of the careers in fashion, right? Because I think some people get confused about some of the basic terminology, and there are so many opportunities within fashion. Of course, when people think of the fashion industry, they think of that traditional designer and the most famous names in fashion sitting at the desk illustrating. But we're going to go through some of the other important individuals and components of the fashion industry as it relates to careers. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the projections and how to navigate in, as you said, this post-anti-corona, this post-COVID time period that we're in, and why Africa. Why is the focus on Africa and the opportunities that exist there, but not overlooking the obstacles as well? And then doing a brief overview of the components as it relates to any business that you should be aware of.
Yeah.
So we'll just skip over that. So let's start with Stylists. I recently watched Breakfast at Tiffany's. And it's a famous movie. And when we think of fashion, we think of TV and film and stage. We think of Rihanna. We may think of the Met Gala, the runway, the red carpet events. And, behind these individuals that are wearing these incredible garments and those that are being dressed for our favorite shows are stylists. And stylists sometimes get confused with designers. Stylists sometimes may design their own pieces, but their primary function is to find items that will suit an individual for a particular purpose. It could be a personal stylist, or of course, individuals that are in the spotlight. And so they will work with magazines, for TV, film, and or personal clientele. So very different from the designers that are sitting behind the desk or around the table sketching away and sourcing fabric. But some stylists also do those skills, but it's not their main thing. Okay, the most popular category, or the most notable category in the fashion space, are the designers, the creators, the ones that are coming up with these magnificent pieces that we admire and are more functional items like t-shirts and denim, right? And these individuals are either recreating something that's existing and reinventing it in some way, or creating something from scratch, an original piece. And the industry is, top-down approach, and your highest priced garments, your designers like Givenchy, Prada, etc., live at the top, and it trickles down to your mass market brands such as Fashion Nova or Forever 21 or American Eagle, etc. Zara is another popular brand, all the way down to Target and Walmart. So there are designers in each of those segments: retail, wholesale, and direct to consumer, that have their own labels and their own brands, and or design for a Macy's or a Target, or work with a manufacturer. That means their label may not be known, but they're still shipping thousands, hundreds of thousands of units across the world, such as to stores like a Zara, for example. So these are these designers. They're sourcing fabrics, they are working with manufacturers, and sometimes they're also the ones responsible for getting the product directly in the hands of the consumer. Our manufacturers, where are we without our manufacturers? And so these are the companies that are cutting and sewing the textiles that are turning into our finished products. And so if you're thinking about going into business, this can be a segment. You know, many individuals in the business world became extremely wealthy in the early 1900s as a manufacturer. And Chanel was one of them. You know, most people don't know that she was behind commercializing pants during the war. And so, yes, she was a designer, started off as a hat designer, but it was her manufacturing facility that really allowed her to reach new heights of wealth. So this is, again, an area. It could be at the very smallest level as a sample maker, where you're creating the first prototypes for a designer, all the way up to doing, again, hundreds of thousands of units per month that are being shipped all over the world. And you're the one responsible for getting them put together in a high quality fashion, or whatever quality is consistent with your price category, and then into the warehouses and eventually to the consumers.
Mm-hmm.
And these are just different types of manufacturers. Specifically in Africa, there are three that came to mind to me that should be on everyone's radar. One of the largest manufacturers is Ethical Apparel Africa. And they're located in Western Africa, and they're known for their sustainable methods of producing. So, we know, again, touching on the post-COVID era, people are a little more conscious than they were. And this is a direction we were moving in already in terms of sustainability. You know, what are we doing to protect our environment, to protect the earth around us? How are we consuming less? And Ethical Apparel of Africa has made this part of their ethos. Another manufacturer is OSC. And this manufacturer is really well known amongst independent designers, but they do also large scale production. One of the issues in Africa for designers based there, especially your smaller independent designers, is how do I produce at a cost effective way at a scale that's appropriate for my business size? And OSC is definitely a resource to look into. Our third manufacturer we have here as an example is WC Apparel. And they're based in Lagos, and they have a niche in the luxury sector. They work with retailers and brands in addition to independent designers in that space. And as you can see, there is a variety of areas within fashion that you can tap into, and luxury is one of them. All right, taking a little trip down the timeline. As of 2019, the industry was projected to grow to $2.5 trillion in annual revenue. Okay, the fashion industry, as most of you know that's on this feed, is one of the most highest generating industries, globally. And the market cap changed, as we moved through COVID, right? We saw a decrease in that revenue for obvious reasons. Obviously, the world came to a halt, right? So the growth actually for 2021 is now 2 to 4%. If brands pay attention to how they can re-navigate and rebrand themselves in this new era. So what can you do? What is it that as a designer, as a manufacturer, as a stylist, someone thinking about, being a part of one of these companies, what is it that we need to pay attention to? And so I mentioned earlier sustainability being a core focus. Looking at your current business model, and or if you're launching a company from scratch, how are you going to tailor your business to be more sustainable? Is it going to be the textiles? Is it going to be the processes that you're implementing? Is it your messaging and the story you're telling, or all three? Obviously, if you can incorporate all three, then that's the most beneficial. Not all companies are as nimble as a smaller independent startup, but they really have to analyze where are they within this space and where can they make changes immediately and what can they plan for the future. I believe I think it was H&M who plans on the next 10 years being 90% sustainable. I think they're about in the 20 percentile range right now.
Wow.
So, pandemic, something we couldn't plan, right?
Yeah.
Being nimble and agile is the new buzzword, is key. As you're planning your business, future-proof your business for unexpected events, that can come up. Can you work virtually? Is the model that you have for your employees or your supply chain able to adapt if there is a major change within your industry or the environment or the world, as we saw recently or are still in recently? Now, in terms of brick and mortar, there's some specific things that you have to pay attention to. And how do you shift? Or if you're considering going into this space, I owned a store once upon a time when I lived in New York, and it's very different than selling directly to the consumer or even e-commerce. And so for brands that are considering brick and mortar, really analyze the geography of those stores or of the store you're looking at or considering. And again, is it adaptable in the event that something changes? Is it in a location where your key core audience resides? So even if something major or drastic happens, you're not losing your base, And then if you have existing brick and mortar stores, really take a look at the landscape and assess which are your best performing stores, where are they located, and again, are those locations a place that could be drastically affected if we had another global event such as this? Okay, so here we go. It's like the presentation needs to keep up with me. All right, here we go. So why Africa and what makes Africa so special? Well, the industry in Africa is worth $31 billion, okay? And the manufacturing space is predicted to grow from 500 billion to 17 trillion dollars. Okay, so that again, in terms of the monetary expectations and growth in Africa, it is ripe for opportunity. All right. South Africa and Nigeria happen to be the biggest markets right now, and especially for the e-commerce space. And they're most equipped as it relates to the Wi-Fi technology and internet, and we'll touch base on that a little later in this presentation. And then, of course, textiles. Ethiopia is making its mark as it relates to the textile industry. And again, Africa is poised with its natural resources to really brand themselves as a place of sustainability for sourcing and manufacturing textiles that are healthy and safe for the environment. The challenge, we touched on the two largest areas right now in terms of the industry and why. Well, the challenge also is that only 24% of the market has internet, where internet is accessible and consistent. And with e-commerce being such a big player right now, in terms of reaching consumers from a marketing standpoint and now distribution, having access to the internet as a consumer is going to be key in how to navigate your business model in Africa. And then as well in terms of communication and supply chain, et cetera. So these are some things to think about. Again, in terms of the opportunity, we're seeing here $75 billion in terms of the opportunity in terms of consumers in Africa and what they can purchase. So speeding through this, because I know we'll touch on some of these topics later in more detail in our Q&A. 5 key components of launching a business. Your brand's niche is key. Number one, where is the area that you're going to decide to focus in on? And then the business model that's built around that, your resources to support your business, how are you going to tell your story and where are you going to share it, and then the distribution process. So going into the brand's niche, how do you determine your brand's niche? Well, first start with what problem are you solving? Okay. Is there a need for more denim based on industrialization in your area? Or are people, tired of, your polyesters and are looking for more cotton items, maybe undergarments or your outerwear? What is that need? And look into that carefully. And why would someone purchase from you? What is that unique thing that you have that you can do that would drive someone to want to go to you for that particular niche? And who needs it most of all? Once you're able to hit that bullseye, that target, that center dot, it's so much easier to scale from there. Less resources, more focus on the key things that support that customer is what you'll be doing for your business model. Identifying your target market, really doing a strong psychographic profile on your customer, not just looking at where they live and their age, but also look at their lifestyle. What are they doing on the weekends? What are they eating? Who are they socializing with? And why? What do they like to do in their free time? These are things that are going to help really hone you in on developing a product or service that they really need. And this may be, again, anywhere you fall in that sector as a manufacturer or a designer. Now also look at what is the demand specific to that area. We talked about textiles, it's something manufacturing. There are a lot of designers in Africa that are known for their amazing runway apparel. But what about mass market products? What about your basics? Is there a need for basics in the region that you are focusing on? Then let that niche really drive your business model. Discover your market, spend time understanding your market. Do they need this product or service? These are things that you can do without spending a dollar. Really spend the time to do your research. And, identify your audience and look at key partners and supporting your business model. It could be a marketing partner. It can be someone in PR, in terms of getting your story out there. Develop a partnership, a strategic partnership with a manufacturer if you are a designer. Maybe there's something that you can give them in exchange for service and vice versa if you don't have the funds to get started. But if you know your niche and you could demonstrate a strong need, then funding will follow. Okay, so again, it really goes back to that initial point that I made, and that's really going to drive all the elements of your business model. We're looking at now sourcing, networking, and financing. And so it's great if you decide to create a new line of cotton dresses. Now what? You have your sketches ready to go, and who's going to produce it for you? And with any designer, it's key if you can find a local manufacturer, if it's suitable to the product and the customer you're serving, if they can, address your needs as a designer. So you want to look around you. We touched on some manufacturers earlier. Based on the size of your business, which manufacturer can help you achieve those goals of production. And then where are you obtaining your textiles? Are you ordering it from overseas? Or are you creating it yourself? There is a designer out of Uganda that I've been in touch with that's making fabric from banana leaves that she's sourcing in her village. And so are you creating them, or are you finding a partner, a local supplier that you're obtaining your fabric from? But your materials are key to differentiating you from your competitors. And as you notice in your higher priced garments, you'll see more prints and more textures. Why? Because it helps justify why someone should be paying more, because this is a unique item that you can't get anywhere else. So don't overestimate the power of your textiles. Really spend time sourcing unique textiles, quality textiles, and as we touched on earlier, as many sustainable textiles as you can. And there's so many. There's so many. Now, we were talking about your resources and partners, and I mentioned marketing companies or publicists. There are a couple resources that are known within the African industry, that fashion industry, that have really made an impact for all companies alike within the space. One is the African Business Pages. All right. So for here, us in the States, think of a Yellow Pages on steroids, but online. It allows you to source everyone and anyone within the industry there. And so you can easily find suppliers, manufacturers, and other companies that can support your business model. And then we have the African Fashion Guide, which is a platform that is similar to like an Amazon, for example. It allows you to create a campaign after launching your brand online and driving traffic to your new store. And here's Edit Atelier is another resource based in West Africa that focuses on sourcing. Okay, so these all are in the presentation that will be shared later in our LinkedIn group. So make sure you join it and then download it for yourself to read in more detail. Marketing, telling the story, one of my favorite parts. And then determining how to share that story, right? So you can create the need or discover the need. You found all your suppliers and manufacturers. And then now, how does anyone figure out you even exist? So again, going back to that customer, going back to that bullseye that we talked about earlier, if you know who they are, where they live, what they do, you can really zero in on your marketing initiatives. Are you going to do online marketing only? Are you going to use your traditional sources, such as your social media platforms? Or are you going to look for other companies online and collaborate and partner with them? Are you going to have live events or in-person shopping experiences? I mean, in post-COVID, you have to consider social distancing, by appointment only. What are the things you're going to do to get the story out to your marketplace? There's guerrilla marketing, developing a group of ambassadors that believe in your product, support your product, and then share those words with their audience and their circles. And so the ambassadors can also serve as an extension of your sales force if you choose to get creative and do that business model. And so again, one thing is finding the customer. The next is creating the story that's going to compel them to purchase it and purchase your product or service. And then and lastly is how are you going to share this amazing story with your audience? And so really knowing where they are, who they are, and where they do their day-to-day activity is going to help you better assess how to reach them. When establishing your marketing initiatives, keep in mind your budget and try to align it with your sales. So on average, you're looking at 3 to 5% of your budget being dedicated to marketing in general. As a higher end product, you're going to have to allocate more of your expenditure to your marketing initiatives. We touched on digital options in terms of distributing or marketing your product, but then also from a distribution standpoint, e-commerce is not going anywhere. And especially due to COVID, it has amplified the need for us to get our products shipped to us and shop online and shop virtually. And so again, thinking about the challenges and opportunities as it exists in the African space, how are you going to navigate this new era of e-commerce? From a technology standpoint, how are you going to support your business with digital technology? Getting close to the end, distribution. Okay, e-commerce is one way and growing. Brick and mortar is another. Direct to consumer, traditional from direct to home selling, in-home selling is another option. So see which one best fits your model and the partners that can support that. So we covered our niche, the business model, resources, how to market your product, and distribution options for your products. And if you need more insight, I have partnered with the UK Image Lab School to launch a course called Master Your Fashion Business. It launches in September. So follow me on Instagram, Nova by the Sea, or on LinkedIn, Nova Lorraine, to stay up to date on that and to get more information. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Oh, wow. That was very, very, very informative. Obviously, you have all this information based on because of all the experience that you have. One of the things that I do want to ask you is, before we start sort of going through the presentation, is one of the things that struck me was when you said the African fashion business is $1 billion industry and it will evolve into $1 trillion industry because it's $1 trillion industry. Fashion all over the world is what it is at this period of time. How do you feel like that's going to be possible? Especially with what's going on right now, without, because obviously we'll delve into other parts of your presentation in just a little bit. But how do you think, because that for me is like the main challenge right now?
Well, I think entrepreneurs is what's going to make it possible, as well as, Africa as a continent is committed to growing the industry. And there are certain countries that are investing a tremendous amount of resources within their niche, such as Ethiopia, as it relates to textiles and manufacturing, really studying models that have worked in other areas around the world and duplicating and innovating those models within their country and their region. China has also seen the opportunity with Africa and has invested a lot of money in developing, bringing factories here, but then also advising certain government agencies and how they can use the models that have succeeded in scaling China's manufacturing industry in Africa as well. And so from an international perspective, as a creative, as an entrepreneur, especially in post-COVID, we are looking for what is the next big thing. Where's the terrain that we can scale and grow in? And Africa has not been branded in fashion as Italy or Brazil or Mexico or China even. And so the landscape is, the opportunity in terms of where this can go is amazing. Countries can brand themselves within niches, maybe Ethiopia in terms of textile and manufacturing, maybe South Africa as it relates to maybe luxury or, what have you. So there's so much that can be done because it's ripe for growth and the interest is there. There's being money invested there. And, international creatives and entrepreneurs are interested in Africa. Africa has a special, there's a mystique about it, but then also as it relates to sustainability, it authentically aligns with the vision of where the industry is going.
Fantastic. There was something that you mentioned there where you said because everybody's now trying to brand, for example, Ethiopia is trying to brand with textiles and everything. One of the key things that I did, information that I stumbled across is that in Kano, this is the northern part of Nigeria, there are lots of tanneries there. And apparently this is where Gucci, Louis Vuitton, and this is where they actually acquired their leather from, to the extent where it's included in their annual budget, where it goes Kano leather. And that's where they actually, that's where they acquire the leather from. But the unfortunate thing that seems to be happening is that because it's on such a large scale, the inhabitants of Kano aren't able to actually own the tanneries themselves, whereby it's, maybe like international firms are coming in and they're setting up the tanneries using the resources and things like that. And then you did also mention about China coming in and advising countries on how to scale based on factories and things that have worked in their country. How does one be on the lookout sort of thing, whereby, for example, if the Chinese are coming in or the Italians are coming in or the international fashion companies are coming in, how does one keep it indigenous, whereby it's the country people, for lack of a better word, it's the country people that are actually benefiting, even though, yes, of course they're benefiting, but, in terms of ownership and actually owning their businesses and not so much exporting their businesses?
Well, I think it's a complicated situation. If you're looking at servicing a company, at that scale, that's creating garments that's being shipped globally, For a smaller independent manufacturer or, textile producer, that's challenging unless they get the support from a funding standpoint and the knowledge to be able to develop the infrastructure to support the demand. I believe international companies would gladly do business with local companies if they were able to support and deliver. I mean, just look at China. It was not American companies going in or Brazilian companies going in and setting up shops. These are family-owned businesses that were able to grow based on demand. And so, but when starting off with anything, you have to learn that area and that niche. You have to invest in that knowledge or bring people in that understand it. And as consultants or advisors or owners or investors to help develop that. And it takes an interest from that local individual to seek out that support. But equally, it takes the interest of associations and government agencies to allow policies to be put in place to protect them, but then also resources, financial resources that they can access to be able to grow and tap into whoever they need to bring in to develop an entity that can support the demand. So I think there's a lot of layers that have to be dissected. I feel that as an international business person, entrepreneur, the ideal situation would be to work with someone that knows the people, knows the land, can scale easily with local talent, and also deliver a quality product consistently.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, because that obviously answered a lot of questions. So are you ready? Do you want to get into the presentation and let's just sort of look through that and see
I'll let you lead.
if we can squeeze more information out of that?
Focus on, absolutely.
All right, good stuff. Okay. So you want to say thank you again? Okay. Right, lovely. Okay, so let's get started with the Q&A. So obviously we will, have whatever the questions that are coming in, the guests will ask. But for now, I'd love for us to just get into that presentation and get some more information out of you, while you're here. Okay, so the first slide that you presented, or the first key one for me, with regards to the stylists that you mentioned, now, one of the key things is stylists often have their own style. They have their own look, they have their own vision. In this country here, we have top stylists. There's like he's called the Style Infidel. We have a Veronica Odeka. There's, different people have their own sort of looks. And then there's like Madame Modiche. So they all have their individual looks, basically. Now, is it, in your opinion, what is a key element that's essential for a stylist in order to be successful?
I would say their creative eye in analyzing someone's personality, body type, face shape, coloring, and perfectly matching that with silhouettes and styles that are going to make them really stand out from, their peers. And even as an entertainer, where you almost have to push the fold even more. Let's look at Beyonce, for example. And then any other, we can go, go back to, let's say, Diana Ross, for example, is the diva. But a lot of their personas are dictated by their fashion. Lady Gaga is, well known for her style. Madonna, Prince, Michael Jackson. We could just go on. And because they have to stand out. They have to be memorable. And these are some of the most talented stylists that are sought out to help create a persona, an image, a personality that this person may want the world to see. Whitney Houston's a great example, very elegant and sophisticated and, angelic as her appearance was portrayed to the world. And it's the stylist that helps create the story with colors, textures, silhouettes, and is able to also make a statement that balances who this person is and excites the world that's seeing that individual. And it can be all the way down to, the day-to-day consumer. But of course, these individuals that are on stage are the most memorable for their style.
And like you said earlier on as well, when you were talking about a little bit about the branding, for example, if you see whatever Beyonce is wearing on stage, a lot of people will replicate that to a certain extent, and it becomes sort of like a diffused version of what she's been wearing on stage. So like it's a very essential part of an individual, especially the artists and even, you know, anybody that's in the public eye, mainly speaking. What because I know that when we were talking, you did say you have styled for, you know, establishments and TV shows. Now you styled for The View, right? How long did you do that for?
It was just for a segment. So for stylists, you come in per project usually. It can be for a photo shoot. It can be, you know, for interior magazine pages, cover pages, or behind the scenes for TV shows. Now, The View is a daily show that changes, so they do segments throughout the show versus something like a TV series such as Friends, for example. Jennifer Aniston is really known for her style on that show. They would have the same stylist, same styling team working with those actors. But for a show like The View or like Ellen, you'll bring in different stylists to partner with the TV crew to give new looks for those segments. So that was what I did. I was brought in,
to do a segment. Okay, great stuff. Okay, so let's move on to the next category was designers. You know, who create original styles by studying trends and or sketching the initial clothing. Question that I have for you with regards to this. If, for example, there's a designer, but the designer doesn't know how to sketch. So in order to bring their creativity to life, it's a little bit tougher because they can't really, you know, you'd have to stand in front of your seamstress and just be like, okay, just do this and do this and do that. Whereas if you had a sketch, it'd be so much easier. So what do you do? What would you do in that sort of situation to, you know, get over that problem in itself or that challenge? Like,
well, yeah, you know, in the world of social media imagery, there's so much out there now and accessible online. And so even just finding something that's similar to what you're trying to create and just being able to communicate that to your team. If you are the only designer and you're not hiring an assistant or a team of assistants, it's really key to be a good communicator. And if you're not good at sketching, be amazing at knowing fabrics then. Be amazing at construction or tailoring. And because your strength is really good at what's going to really stand out and shine. And for some, it is the illustration. And that illustration is just, and that design that's coming out of their head is just so off the charts, and that translates into something wonderful. But then it's the tailoring, like Alexander McQueen, that he was known for. And that was his strength. And so I think for a designer, it's key to really more so focus on your strength, because there's so much support now as it relates to getting your idea across from an illustration standpoint. Or hire a good illustrator or students. There's some really talented individuals out there that would love an opportunity to work with a designer. So even as an intern, getting interns and volunteers to help express your ideas on paper, if you're choosing not to use necessarily photographs to do that.
Lovely. Okay, so now manufacturing. I was very excited about the fact when you spoke about Chanel and how a lot of people don't actually know that she, you know, apart from being a designer, she was actually a manufacturer, right? And you said that she created pants. I think, was it for the war or what was it for exactly?
Yeah. So the men all went off to war, and the women at that time were still wearing these incredible ball gown dresses and corsetry. And Chanel, always being a rule breaker, was already wearing pants in the country. She would ride horses, straddle the horses where it was like a no-no, you know, you have to ride side with the dress. And this was something that she was already accustomed to. And now the women were forced to go to the factories and work, and they didn't have a working wardrobe. And so it was through her pants that really assisted, you know, that part of the war in terms of equipping the women with a uniform to wear to work. But it was really what set her apart from a financial standpoint, where she became independently wealthy and able to continue to grow her fashion brand.
Fantastic. Because one of the things that struck me when you mentioned that is once the Corona situation started, one of the key aspects that I noticed is a lot of designers, they moved to manufacturing. One of the first designers to come out, Christian Siriano, who, you know, made an announcement that he's going to start helping and he's going to start creating masks. And that happened in the States. Over here in Nigeria, I know that Rough and Tumble, who make children's clothes, did the same thing. Tiffany Amber, who makes, more luxury. She's more of the high-end luxury, boo-boos and gowns and things. And she started manufacturing PPE clothing and masks as well. So is it a key component as a designer to be innovative and obviously be on the ball just to make sure you are working with the times and the current issues of what's going on?
Absolutely. And I love all those examples you shared. I say at any point in time, you should create a business model that can change with the changing times, that can move and you can mobilize and, participate in any situation. And yeah, people were not buying, high-end pieces. Where are you wearing it to? You're stuck in your house. You're worried about your loved ones. And so what do you do then as a designer? You jump in and you address the need. Going back to the first point about, knowing your niche and who you're serving and what is it that they need. And those designers looked at their customers and said, you know what, this is what they need at this moment in time. I'm shifting to give them what they need. And sometimes it takes something that's this drastic to change our needs as consumers. When women shifted from wearing dresses all the time to pants, you have a lot of, designers and manufacturers that address that need. Denim became all the rage once upon, it wasn't as popular, even 2-3 decades ago as it is now. And so designers shifted gears and said, this is a need, I'm going to address it. And Fashion Nova had, made its mark with denim that, fits curvy bodies. So here we are wearing jeans for years. And here's a manufacturer that decided to make really fashionable jeans that fit different body types. And so I do believe that designers should always pay attention to current trends and not just be a trendsetter, but continue to stay in touch with their customer and adapt to their needs as their needs change.
Fantastic. So I want to move on to the manufacturers that you mentioned, where you Ethical Apparel, Africa, OSC, and WC Apparel. Okay, so in mentioning these, how easy is it? I mean, obviously, whether you've had contact with manufacturers before, how easy is it to communicate with them with regards to conducting business, communicating? Because one of the slides that you had, you said whether you're going to cut patterns. And so, some manufacturers do them, some manufacturers don't. So obviously it depends on, who it is that you choose to do business with. What is usually the timeline with regards to getting in touch with the manufacturer and executing what it is that you want to accomplish?
I think as soon as you determine the product you're going to create and the fabrics you're going to use to create those products, you should start sourcing out manufacturers.
Okay.
And some people do it backwards. They'll say, these are my resources. I have a manufacturer in my backyard that produces, let's just use denim because we've used it, denim example, in this unique twill and stretch. So I'm going to create a collection around this resource. But let's just say you have, you're more focused on the front end design aspect, and you're going to be working with fabrics made out of bamboo, and it's going to be priced at this amount. Therefore, you can only spend this much as it relates to manufacturing. And so knowing your budget per piece, knowing how many items you're going to that you're going to produce, initially, and how that's going to grow is key. The manufacturer is going to say, okay, what is it that you want to produce? How many are you producing? How quickly do you need that amount? And then what are the fabrics you're using? Because not every manufacturer is an expert in every single textile. If you're using silk blouses, you need to find a manufacturer that's expert in producing silk blouses because they're developing special techniques and they're using certain machines. They're going to provide the optimal quality for your product. So know your pricing, know the fabrication, know your budget and how many items do you need? Because that's usually what's going to, set you up. That's really what's going to differentiate one manufacturer from another. They may not produce the minimums that you need, or they may not produce the maximums that you need. If you need to get 1,000 items out per week, you're not going to go to a smaller manufacturer that can only do up to 500 items a week.
Yeah.
So those points are really important to know. And then in terms of the timeline, as soon as you know your product and your fabric, start reaching out and researching.
Okay, lovely. Okay, so moving on to another slide. Post-COVID business shifts. One of the things that you mentioned is because of the situation with COVID, the brick and mortar establishments, they actually suffered a lot. In this time right now, if there's an up and coming designer, would you advise that they actually get a location, like a storefront? Would you actually advise that? Or would it be better to just rely on social media?
I think it depends on the business model and the story that you're telling, and the location that you are planning on launching that brick and mortar in. I mean, there might be a great need there, and your business model may focus on, let's say virtual reality experiences, and or you may have this live event sort of concept. I mean, now post COVID, until things settle out even more, that would be challenging. So I would say may want to look, in the future for that. But I think it really just depends on, again, the model, the customer, and then the price point of your product, because some things are better seen and sold with the experiences of seeing it in real time.
True,
and then also brick and mortar, a lot of e-commerce companies now are opening brick and mortar stores because we're still human and we still want to touch things and feel things and be around people. And there is a very much a psychological component of shopping with people around you or with your friends or with your family. There's a therapeutic component to that, right? A social component. And to extend your brand name, a brick and mortar is something that could be really key in your business model. So I wouldn't 100% advise against it. I would first start with who's your customer, what's their need, where are you thinking of doing this, and is this an area that can adapt in the light of another event that would take place like this?
Lovely. Thank you very much for that. Now, the slide challenge versus opportunity. 24% internet penetration is just over 24%, and that's hindering brands in less populated areas. Whereas there's the opportunity that by 2025, Africa is estimated to be buying $75 billion worth of goods and services online. Okay, again, it begs the question, how do we do this without, I'm not trying to put so much pressure on you, but to say solve all the problems, but I'm just saying, how do we do this whereby, like you said, and just where we discuss right now, where depending on the situation, depending on the location will determine what you need, and it depends on your story as well. But it's such a huge, just quite a vast, leap in order to get from this aspect of the challenge of there's just 24% penetration and getting to the 75 billion, basically.
Those are really great points. And I think that one, there are various countries that are invested in developing the infrastructure of internet technology within, their regions. And that's going to help. But then as an entrepreneur, I would immediately, look at the opportunity there. We know that there's going to be growth. Where can you position yourself? We've talked about being a designer or a stylist or manufacturer, but there's so much opportunity on the technology side as well. And so even just, deciding I'm going to be a technological fashion company. Maybe I create a shopping internet cafe where you can come in and shop online in my cafe, with reliable internet. And maybe
I'm writing that down. That is amazing. That's an amazing idea. Oh my goodness. Okay, carry on. Sorry.
So I think it's a matter of saying, here's the need, here's the opportunity, here are the challenges. Maybe I'm part of the solution to the challenge.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, so next one, where you spoke about the key components, the 5 key components to launch a business. Okay. The first thing that you mentioned is determine your brand's niche. Now, a lot of people want to start something and they want to go into everything. Somebody will say, I want to go into ladies wear, I want to do kids, I want to do men's wear, that sort of thing. And, you know, obviously you have to then take everything else into consideration, determining the business model, utilizing resources, marketing the business, and distributing the product. Do you, or would you advise that it's best to take it one at a time? Or is it possible to do, I'm just using this as an example, is it possible to do all three at the same time?
In terms of 1, 2, 3?
No. In terms of, for example, there is an individual who wants to go into the fashion business, but then wants to start with ladies wear, men's wear, children's wear at the same time.
Yeah,
you know?
I would say, let's think of Amazon, which most people around the world know Amazon, and have forgotten that they started with just books, right? Don't forget that. They are known now as, you know, a global distributor. But they started selling books online, something that people said, you're crazy. People never buy books without seeing it or touching it. And it was a niche. It was one item, a variety of that particular item, but it was one thing. And they were able to penetrate that market. And that's what you have to think about, you know, as an entrepreneur or business owner. What is going to be your book? You know, think about the most successful brands. Nike, they started with a sneaker. Not tank tops, not jogging shorts, not all these other things that they have now. They started with a sneaker, a very cool, fashionable sneaker, and grew from there. What's going to be your sneaker? You know, so I would, unless you have such a strong existing brand and the resources to support scaling simultaneously several categories at once, go for it. If you are not branded and you're a manufacturer and you're selling to retailers, that's a different story. You're a manufacturer, you know, you have the infrastructure to develop pants and, you know, for children or men or whomever, and you're marketing that to, you know, let's say a Macy's or a Target, you know, go for it. But just understand that each product category has its own line of what's your niche, you know, what's the story behind it, why is someone going to buy it, and all of these things for each category. And so you need to still address all of those same points, you know, for each of those things. So it just becomes more challenging to juggle all those things successfully, depending on your resources, not just financial, but also people.
Okay, great. Now, utilizing resources was one of the areas that I wanted to touch on as well. And I'm just harping on, and I know I've mentioned this before, but talking about the digital options that are available. What you highlighted is Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, that sort of thing. Out of these three, well, actually, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say based on location, that's what's going to work the best, basically. But again, you know, and I know I've asked you almost like 2 times now, almost circling around the same area with regards to, you know, internet providers or just internet accessibility. The digital options that are here, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, who do you think is the strongest? Which one of them is the strongest as a fashion brand? Because they all, okay, a lot of people will turn around and say Facebook has so many more people than any of these other platforms. Instagram is the one where you go and you see, and people are pretty much posing and just, you know, living their most fabulous life. Pinterest is that place where you just get to do everything you've always wanted to do. It's almost like shopping with your eyes. That's what I love about Pinterest. So where or which one would you say, even if, you know, everybody's going to expand gradually onto the different platforms, which one would you say start with this, then move on to this, and then use this one?
Okay. I am going to go back to your niche because if your customer is not spending time on Instagram or Pinterest, as amazing as a platform that they both are, then you're going to be wasting money. If you're looking at converting sales, if it's a matter of brand awareness and growing and reaching a new audience, then that's different. So, and then it also depends on your price category as well and the type of item that you're selling. So some things do better on, let's say, an Instagram versus a Pinterest. But I equally love Pinterest, as you mentioned. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite platforms. But as a new design, if I was just advising a new brand, I definitely would say make Instagram a part of your platform. And it's, you know, people are moving from Facebook as, traditionally being the go-to communication platform for sharing images and stories to Instagram. And Facebook obviously isn't going anywhere anytime soon, but you are seeing that demographic, age upwards on Instagram, where it started with your younger millennials and attracted now the Gen Zers, but also your baby boomers are coming on to see what their grandkids are doing and everything else. So I would say Instagram is absolutely key. Also, you can implement the shopping tools and have your customers shop right from your Instagram posts. Here I'm doing an Instagram commercial. But I do think it's a valuable tool to reach, engage, and convert sales as a fashion brand.
Of course. Lovely. Okay, and then finally, because I want to get to the Q&A with what the guests are asking, so we can address that. And then finally, you mentioned that you have a course, which I think a lot of people would love to just get a little bit more information about. And obviously, if we follow your social media accounts, basically, whether it's on Instagram or it's on LinkedIn, we'll be able to get the information. Could you just tell us just a little bit more about your course and what it entails?
Sure. It's called Master Your Fashion Business. And it's to help anyone that's interested in developing any sort of business within the fashion space, maybe clothing, accessories, or beauty. And it starts with creating that brand story and how important that is, and it moves through how do you get that story out to the public, how do you source the right financial resources, and the little tricks and hacks to help save you time and money along this journey. And a lot of it starts right at home or your office, wherever you feel most comfortable doing your work, in terms of planning and researching and knowing the key elements to focus on before even spending $1, and knowing the resources to look into initially before putting up the I am in business sign, maybe online or in brick and mortar. So it goes from a very novice educational perspective into very quickly into the master level and what you need to really master your business.
Fantastic, lovely. So when is it available for people to start signing up, even though it's starting later on in the year?
Yeah, and it's available. They can go to imagelabschool.com. That's the UK school that I've collaborated with to launch the course. It is international, and it launches in September. And we actually have a free workshop next week for those that want to get a little insight. But yeah, if you go to imagelabschool.com, and again, follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram, Nova by the Sea on Instagram and Nova Raine on LinkedIn to get more information. DM me, reach out to me. I'd be happy to share.
Fantastic, lovely. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's sort of just shift gear and address the questions that our guests have for us. Okay, this is from Profiles TV, and they say, "Good day. In the fashion life circle, most designers find it hard to break out of that phase with lots of rejection. What is the best model to build your brand to mitigate against this tough phase?"
Oh, such a great question. I can't count how many no's I've heard along the way when I started. It's tough, but you know what? You go in with a resilient attitude, hence the name of this conference. Go in with a resilient attitude. If you believe in your product, every no is going to get you closer to the yes. You only need one yes. And when I was starting off, and I decided I was looking for investors, and this was at a time period where investors were very conservative and only investing in tech companies at the time, because the reality is a lot of investors don't understand the fashion industry. And even if they love your product or idea, they're not really clear how they're going to make their money back. And so what I did was I decided to open up my own store and just take it into my own hands. And sometimes you have to do that. And, reach out to those that are closest to you that will support you, maybe from a financial standpoint or becoming a part of your team, or hitting the pavement and knocking on doors for you. But absolutely do not give up. Know that there are going to be no's. And you wouldn't want someone to say yes that was a wrong fit anyway. So, just change your perspective, welcome the no's, and just look forward to the yeses. Just don't give up.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so now here we have, hello, great content you shared today. And this is Chinonye Yomi Akiyemi. She says, I'm into bridal fashion in Lagos and looking to scale up. One of the major challenges is fabric sourcing, considering that most of them come from Asia. It's hard to keep production costs down, which impedes our ability to be competitive. What would you advise, please, on how to make this work?
I would say if textiles are your biggest issue, spend the most time researching smaller manufacturers and creating a strategic partnership with them. You'd be surprised. There are so many companies looking for new designers to work with that they believe in. And sometimes they may invest in you as well, and it may not be handing you cash, but they may say, you know what, don't pay me now or pay me less. And, until you get, to a point where we can, get to our regular rates. And it may take traveling to those places to find those manufacturers. A lot of them don't have, well-established websites. And so poking around, asking questions, asking maybe a larger manufacturer if they know of anyone that they could refer you to. Most people are willing to help you and point you in the right direction. And just say, do you know anyone? Who could I talk to for this? And then also research maybe alternative fabrics and textiles. There are, textile mills that are experimenting with new fabrications and looking again for designers to try it and get it out in the marketplace. Because if it gets out there, then they can say, oh, so-and-so's using it, and they could sell more of it. So look at your textile mills and your manufacturers as partners and find smaller size ones that are willing to see you as adding value to them as it relates to bringing the cost down or, delaying costs or providing you a product or service at a lower price.
Lovely. Okay, Chin Shaka Wakrot says, hi, good day. For startups, especially for upcoming streetwear designers like myself, acceptance can be a problem because of our culture and norms here, and also the issue of pricing. Most customers don't understand that to get pieces out costs money because production is on a small scale, so it costs more. How do you manage this problem?
Yeah, so for higher priced items, more money or efforts or resources are tended to be placed into marketing. You have to, so people are either going to pay for function or they're going to pay for aspiration. So you have to give them a reason to spend more. And if you know that it's exceptional quality, may it be in construction or fabric, then you need to get the word out. You need to create that illusion. You need to create that aspirational aspect of your garment. So fashion shows tend to do that. Getting creative on social media, telling a story, maybe sharing your personal journey as a designer, and people fall in love with you as a designer or your lifestyle or what you believe in. And they want a part of that. They want to share that. They want to wear that. They want to represent that. And so don't ignore the story, because it's not always going to be the product that's going to sell. There's always going to be something that's going to be less expensive, more expensive, prettier, nicer, more well-made. The story really helps you set apart yourself from your other designers. But it also gives something for the customer to fall in love with. And it gives them a reason to spend a little bit more. Do we really need a polo shirt? I mean, the little horse on the shirt, do we really? I mean, I love my polo shirts, but do we really need that? No, but Ralph Lauren spent a lot of time in telling a story and creating a lifestyle that people are willing to spend more money buying a basic shirt with a little horse on it. If you're selling a higher priced garment, give them a reason. And they may not want to hear like, oh, it's better fabric, so what, I can buy. No, give them a story that they can fall in love with. Maybe this fabric was made, on the loom and it passed down from generations, or maybe this fabric means empowerment and you'll feel empowered when you're wearing it. Find that story within your collection and share that more, and people will buy into that.
So one needs to get creative, basically.
Yeah, storytelling is a big part of it, and then sharing your reasons of creating that product, like why streetwear and why the way that you're constructing it. Share that with the world so they can understand and they can better buy into that and be willing to spend the money for it. And then knowing your customer, you may be marketing to the wrong audience. So maybe finding your customer online will be a better option than, maybe your local market is not your customer, and just being honest with yourself too. So really understanding where your customer is important.
Okay, lovely. All right, so I have Sanami A here, and she says, I'd like to ask a question. A typical fashion African brand and fundraising, in your opinion, what is your biggest challenge, and how sustainable is the debt financing model?
So I have experience with investors as well as debt financing. And if you can get someone to buy into your dream and have them take a part as an equity owner, it takes a lot of stress off your hands. If it's the right partner, right?
Yeah.
Choose carefully, because it is a marriage, really, in business. But debt financing, when I launched my store, I was able to get a sizable loan and was very grateful for that. And that helped me launch my store. And so I knew for my store, I didn't necessarily want to take on equity partners. And so just really understanding yourself and your tolerance is a big part of how you source your financial resources. And having a plan, knowing it's going to change, but having a plan that supports paying back that debt in a reasonable time frame, accounting for unexpected circumstances such as this. So you want to make sure that you have a cushion that can allow you to pay that debt, and or a debt partner that can be flexible with you when you need that flexibility. So I do think they both work. It depends on your tolerance level, your personality. Also, really taking the time to find the right partners. Don't say yes to every bank or private financier. Don't say yes to every equity investor. It really has to be a right fit, because as a creative, if you can't sleep at night based on who you're partnered with, you're not going to produce your best work, and your business is not going to flourish. So really support and protect yourself as a creative, and find those individuals that will allow you to do what you do best. The money isn't everything. Yes, you definitely need the money, but don't rush it. Like, definitely take the time to source the right resources and partners.
All right, lovely. Okay, Yosola Daramola is asking, what do you think about work ethic, and what kind of ethics do you believe in following while working as a fashion designer? Great question.
So a little bit about me. I was born in Jamaica and the eldest girl of 6. So work ethic for us and our family was, it just came hand in hand with like eating and sleeping. Like, you just needed to work hard. And so for me, it's a part of just who I am. And if I need to do an all-nighter, I'll do an all-nighter to get the work done. I put quality first. And so, deadlines and goals. And if I say I'm going to deliver something, I really make sure I deliver that. And this is not an easy industry. There's so many nuances to it. The creative end is just one part of it. And, as the previous person asked the question, the financing is another part. And then you have everything else, the manufacturing, distribution, the marketing. And so just be ready to, put that time and energy in. And then if you're not ready, then don't start. And then again, know what you love to do within the space, and develop a team around you that can support you and do the other things that you don't do well or you don't love to do, to help avoid burnout. But I believe with anything, it may be fashion, it may be academics, whatever it is, having a strong work ethic is going to help push you through those times that are not so good and not so pleasant. So I do think it's important, and I do think that it's something, if you're not born with, you can actually, adapt and make that a part of who you are as a business person, as a creative, and as an entrepreneur.
Wonderful. Okay, so this is what looks like our last question. Timmy Topek Bamaru says, change your perspective, welcome the no's. This is a different but welcome point of view. Okay, more of a statement than a question. Change your perspective, welcome the no's. This is a different but welcome point of view. Yeah, because I think a lot of people fear the no. And once they get a no, it's almost like, oh no, okay. And then it's almost like a catatonic state of, oh, what do I do now? Whereas it's just about moving forward, with the no.
Absolutely. I mean, it took some time. You definitely have to build the thick skin when you're in any creative industry. I mean, you could be a dancer, an actor, a singer. You're going to get no's. It's very subjective. And someone falling in love with your plan, someone falling in love with your design is also very subjective. And so understand, yes, it's a part of you because you created it, but it's not you. And don't take it personal. You know, not everyone is going to see what you see. Not everyone's going to believe in the dream that you have. And I get fired up. Someone says no, I'm like, oh, really? I'm going to prove you wrong. Did you say that? Did you? No, you didn't say that. So kind of challenge yourself and say, okay, all right, you know, that wasn't the right person, and I'm grateful for that. I found that out before, you know, investing any time or energy with that person. And like I said, focus on the yeses. You know, if you stick with it and you really believe it, you're going to find people that are going to feel that and are going to want to be a part of that, even if they know nothing about fashion. And so just stick to it. There are going to be ups and downs on every journey, and, you know, not just this one.
Lovely. Okay, so I mean, we've come to the end of our Q&A. Frankly speaking, this for me, the seminar, just being here, and I'm the sort of person where I like to delve into different sorts of businesses and everything, and I've always wanted to get into the fashion world. So I watch it from a distance, where I follow the Vogue magazines obsessively, and I love Anna Wintour despite, you know, her reputation, and it's just, you know, listening and watching and just digesting everything within the fashion industry. This information that you've shared, especially since you focused it on Africa, is really very enlightening, because it shows us the opportunities, the advantages of actually getting into it, and the different resources that are available to us that, frankly speaking, I, as an individual, wouldn't even know. So this is, I mean, it's been quite phenomenal. And I do really want to thank you for sharing this information and actually taking the time out to put, like, for example, the presentation together and sharing your experience with us and letting us know how to do what it is that you do. Because what you do is quite, I mean, we can't, you know, I'm just saying. So it's quite amazing. It really is.
Well, I'm humbled to be here. And thank you so much for your amazing questions as well, and moderating this, you know, for me, and allowing, you know, our viewers to ask those questions. So thank you again. And I can sense the passion, you know, in the voice and the questions. It's like, oh, those are some good ones. But it's a lot of fun. I love this. And more importantly, I love helping others. And I just am grateful to do it, you know, within a space that I have a passion for.
Oh, fantastic. So what should I know you said, you know, you have the class that's coming up in September. Apart from that, Nova Raine, what should we expect from you? You know, because trust me, you're going to get quite a few more followers. Be like, okay, what's she doing now? Oh, what's the next step? You know, that sort of thing.
Actually, I just got the image for my book cover from my publisher. Speaking of COVID, I signed a book deal during COVID. God is great. And it's Unleash Your Supernova, and it's 101 action tips on boosting creativity and beating burnout, how to survive the journey of creative entrepreneurship. So that comes out spring of 2021. And again, follow me, because they're going to do some pre-promotions for those that are interested in being early birds and signing up for the book before it's released. So I'm super excited. Today's my birthday, and that was my little early birthday present.
I know. Happy birthday again. What an amazing birthday you're having. What an amazing birthday.
And then listen to the podcast. It's the same. Unleash Your Supernova. It's on all your major podcast channels. So listen to the podcast.
I'm definitely signing up. Trust me. I'm now like a very, very huge fan. So I'll be there on all your platforms. Like, hey, it's me saying, hey, you know, you're very welcome. And thank you again for being a part of the Resilient Africa initiative. That's what I'm going to call it, because this is actually doing a lot for a lot of people in just sort of unveiling the ways forward and the ways to survive during the anti-corona period.
I'm like, ooh, I never heard it like that.
Right, no, you know, because the reason why I actually started calling her Auntie Rona, because a lot of people were saying whenever you were referring to her on Instagram, don't use Corona, because apparently they're sort of like muting those posts. So I started calling her Auntie Rona. Yeah, basically. But you know what? She's here. She'll be gone soon enough. But or otherwise, I had a conversation with somebody yesterday, and she said to me, she goes, "This is the new normal. We're just going to have to maneuver during this period of time. And when it's gone, because there might be something that comes up afterwards, which then pertains to exactly what you were saying with regards to preparing, putting a business plan together, and putting a structure together to allow for situations like this.
Right. Being agile to mobilize. And one of the things that I hope is that we get to a point where we can socialize again. And then, within the fashion space, we creatives, anyone loves being around the energy of others that are creating. And that's something that I miss. And I appreciate the video technology, I really do. But looking forward to those moments when we can actually be in the same space again and, and feed off of each other in that creative energy.
That's true. Once again, Nova, thank you very much for being here, and thank you for paying us the honor of being here and sharing all this information with us.
I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Lovely. Take care, and we shall speak soon. Bye. Take care. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.